As the first light of dawn crept over the horizon, a chilling silence enveloped the fields, broken only by the distant rustling of leaves. What lay beneath the golden rays was a sight that defied all logic. A circle, impossibly perfect, etched into the earth with an artistry that could not belong to any human hand. Each blade of grass bowed gracefully, folded in a way that suggested a deliberate design, as if nature itself had conspired to create this enigma. What could have fashioned such a symbol? Was it a message from another realm, or a testament to something sinister lurking just beyond the veil of perception? As the sun rose, casting long shadows over the land, a sense of foreboding began to settle in, leaving an unsettling question hanging in the air. What unseen force had claimed this moment? And what did it mean for those who would dare to uncover its truth? As the first light of dawn crept over the horizon, a chilling silence enveloped the fields, broken only by the distant rustling of leaves. What lay beneath the golden rays was a sight that defied all logic. A circle, impossibly perfect, etched into the earth with an artistry that could not belong to any human hand. Each blade of grass bowed gracefully, folded in a way that suggested a deliberate design, as if nature itself had conspired to create this enigma. The air was thick with a stillness that seemed to pulse, a quiet heartbeat of the earth itself. The faintest whisper of a breeze carried the scent of damp soil, mingling with the lingering essence of the night that had just passed. It was a scent that could both soothe and unsettle, reminding those who breathed it in of life, yet hinting at something beyond their understanding. The sun's first rays kissed the edges of the mysterious formation, illuminating the geometric intricacies that unfolded like a secret language written in the language of the cosmos. In the distance, the familiar silhouette of the old barn loomed, its weathered wood standing as a silent witness to the night's strange occurrences. The dirt road that wound its way through the fields wound tighter, leading into the unknown. The very path that had seen countless seasons yet had never borne witness to such an unsettling phenomenon. The solitude of rural life, once a comfort, now felt oppressive. A cloak of tension wrapping around the land as whispers of fear began to ripple through the air. As the sun climbed higher, the shadows cast by the trees deepened, creating a tapestry of darkness and light that played tricks on the mind. The chirping of crickets, which had been a comforting lullaby throughout the night, fell eerily silent, as if they too were uncertain of what had unfolded in the fields. The soft rustling of grass underfoot became an echo of unrest, every footstep resonating with the weight of an unspoken dread. A lone crow perched atop a nearby fence post, its beady eyes surveying the scene with a knowing gaze. It cawed sharply, a sound that shattered the eerie quiet, pulling the attention of those who dared to venture out of their homes. The crow's cry seemed to reverberate with a sense of urgency, as if it were warning the inhabitants of the nearby farmhouse that something was amiss. Yet, what could they do? Who could they tell? The isolation of their rural existence had always been a refuge, but today it felt like a prison, trapping them within the confines of their own fears and uncertainties. As dawn broke fully, the beauty of the landscape began to mask the underlying tension. The sun painted the fields with golden hues, transforming the ordinary into something ethereal. But for those who had caught sight of the circle, the beauty was tainted, marred by an unshakable feeling that they were being watched. It was a sensation that crawled along their skin, raising the hairs on the back of their necks, a primal instinct urging them to flee from whatever had taken root in their midst. Yet curiosity is a relentless beast, and it clawed at the minds of the villagers. What had they stumbled upon? The questions hung in the air, thick and palpable, as they gathered at the edge of the field, their eyes drawn to the mysterious formation. They stood in a loose circle, a congregation of unease, their breath caught in their throats. Each of them felt the pull of the unknown, a magnetic force that urged them to step closer, to touch the impossible. But then, there were the sounds, the low hum that resonated beneath their feet, a vibration that seemed to syncopate with the very rhythm of their hearts. It was a sound that could be felt more than heard, creeping into their bones and igniting a sense of urgency. Was it fear? Was it wonder? Or was it something deeper, something that spoke to the very fabric of their existence? The villagers shifted uneasily, exchanging glances filled with questions that had no answers. In that moment, as they stood on the precipice of discovery, the air thickened with anticipation. The farmers had always believed that the land held secrets, stories embedded in the soil that had been passed down through generations. But this was different. This was a phenomenon that seemed to transcend human understanding, something that challenged the very essence of their reality. They were not just witnesses. They were participants in an unfolding drama that threatened to unravel the world as they knew it. As they took hesitant steps toward the circle, the sensation of being observed intensified, a chill weaving through the air that felt almost tangible. The sun, now fully risen, cast an unyielding light upon the scene, revealing every detail of the inexplicable formation. But with the brightness came an unsettling clarity, the realization that they had crossed an invisible line, that some things were never meant to be uncovered. With each step, the ground beneath them seemed to pulse, the vibrations growing stronger, resonating through their feet and up into their chests. It was a rhythm, an echo of the unknown that beckoned them to draw nearer, yet warned them to retreat. In that moment, as fear and fascination collided, the villagers found themselves at a crossroads, standing between the familiar comfort of their lives and the terrifying allure of the mystery that lay before them. And just as they reached the edge of the circle, the wind shifted, bringing with it a sudden chill that cut through the warmth of the morning sun. The hairs on their arms stood on end, and the sound of a distant thunder rumbled, though the sky remained clear. It was a warning, perhaps, a reminder that the forces at play were greater than they could comprehend. And in that heartbeat, as they stood on the brink of revelation, the atmosphere crackled with an intensity that hinted at a truth waiting to be unearthed, a truth that would change everything they believed to be real. As they hesitated, the question loomed larger than life. What had they awakened in the fields, and would they ever truly understand the depths of the mystery that had unfolded in their midst? The dawning light had brought clarity, but with it came a darkness that would linger long after the sun had set, an unshakable feeling that they were far from alone in their quest for answers. The field had become a stage, and they were the unwilling actors in a play that was just beginning to unfold. The sun hung high in the sky, its light casting long shadows across the fields, illuminating the chilling aftermath of the night's events. The villagers, still caught in the grip of disbelief, took tentative steps forward, their breaths shallow, as if the very air around them had thickened into a palpable presence. The circle, a geometric anomaly etched into the wheat, stood defiantly against the backdrop of a serene countryside, a jarring contradiction to the peaceful nature they had known all their lives. As they approached, the silence was deafening, punctuated only by the whisper of the wind weaving through the crops. Each rustle seemed to carry a warning, a message from the earth itself. The scent of damp soil mixed with an unidentifiable metallic tang that hung heavily in the air, sending an involuntary shiver down their spines. It was a smell that felt alien, a reminder that something beyond their understanding lingered just out of sight. The ground beneath their feet vibrated with an intensity that felt like a heartbeat, steady, insistent, and ominous. It was as if the earth were alive, pulsing with a rhythm that echoed deep within their bones. With every step closer, their apprehension morphed into a tight knot of fear and intrigue, a visceral push and pull that mirrored the very energy emanating from the circle. The wheat, still bowed in perfect arcs, whispered secrets in a language they could not decipher, urging them to turn back, even as their curiosity pulled them forward. Old Man Hargrove, the village's unofficial historian, broke the oppressive silence. His voice trembled like the distant thunder that rumbled again, a stark contradiction to the otherwise clear blue sky. This pattern, it's not natural, he declared, his eyes wide with a mix of dread and wonder. I've read of such things, but to see it, it's beyond comprehension. Hargrove's words hung heavily in the air, laden with a weight that suggested a deeper knowledge, a history intertwined with the very land they stood upon. Around him, the villagers exchanged uneasy glances, fear etched across their faces. Some clutched their children closer, instinctively protective, while others stepped back, unwilling to be caught in the gravitational pull of the mystery. They were drawn to it, yet repelled by an instinct they couldn't articulate. The very essence of the circle seemed to pulse with an energy that beckoned them, promising answers to questions they had yet to fully form. As they stood at the threshold of the formation, the wind picked up, swirling around them with sudden ferocity. It carried a sound, a low, resonant hum that seemed to vibrate not just in the air but in their very cores. It was a sound that felt ancient and powerful, a tone that resonated with the unformed fears in their hearts. Beneath the hum, there were echoes of whispers, almost like voices carried on the breeze. But when they strained to listen, the words slipped away like grains of sand through their fingers. Just then, a flash of light erupted from the center of the circle, illuminating the field with an otherworldly glow. The villagers gasped collectively, the sound cutting through the thick tension. The light danced, not blinding but instead inviting, a beckoning that felt both sacred and terrifying. In that moment, time seemed to suspend, and the world around them dissolved into a vortex of uncertainty. Shadows elongated and twisted, bending reality in ways they had never perceived before. As the light flickered, it cast strange, shifting patterns across the faces of the villagers. Some squinted against the brightness, while others stood transfixed, eyes wide with a mixture of fear and wonder. The hum intensified, reverberating through the ground, climbing up their legs and settling into their chests, a syncopated rhythm that matched the frantic beating of their hearts. "What is happening?" a young woman cried out, her voice cracking under the weight of her terror. "We shouldn't be here." But the pull was undeniable. They had come too far, crossed too many invisible lines, and now the allure of the unknown held them captive. It was a cosmic dance between fear and fascination, and each villager felt the tug of the mystery, a call to uncover what lay hidden beneath the surface of their reality. As the light slowly dimmed, the villagers found themselves standing at the edge of the circle, a place where fear and curiosity converged. The scent of the earth shifted, now laced with something sweet, yet acrid, a reminder that they were intruding into a realm that was not theirs. The vibration beneath them settled into a low thrum, resonating with the heartbeat of the earth, alive, waiting, and watching. In the stillness that followed, they could feel it, a presence, vast and unfathomable, pressing against their minds, challenging their understanding of the world. It was a reminder that they were but mere mortals, faced with the incomprehensible vastness of existence. The realization settled over them like a fog, thickening the air, wrapping them in a shroud of uncertainty. And as they stood there, at the edge of the known and the unknown, the question reverberated through their minds. What had they awakened? The answer lingered just beyond their reach, a tantalizing whisper fading into the wind, leaving behind a haunting echo that would forever change the fabric of their lives. The mystery pulsed like a living entity, and they knew in their bones that they were no longer the masters of their fate, but mere players in a cosmic game they could scarcely comprehend. The air hung heavy, thick with an unnameable tension that wrapped around the villagers like a vice, squeezing out their breath and leaving them in a state of taut anticipation. As the last remnants of light faded, the depths of the night enveloped them, cloaking the landscape in an inky darkness that felt almost alive. The stars above glimmered like distant sentinels, indifferent to the turmoil below, as if they were witnesses to an ancient ritual unfolding in the heart of the earth. The dirt road that had once been familiar now seemed to twist and writhe beneath their feet, a living entity that threatened to swallow them whole. The barn loomed in the distance, its weathered wood and rusty hinges standing as a somber testament to the passage of time. Flickering shadows danced along the walls, casting elongated figures that flickered in and out of the corners of their vision. Each gust of wind carried with it the remnants of whispers, soft yet urgent, urging them to turn back, to escape the pull of the gathering mystery that now thrummed in the air. But the villagers remained rooted to the spot, transfixed by the burgeoning sensation that something monumental was about to unfold. The vibrations beneath them intensified, a deep, resonant hum that seemed to seep into their very bones. It was unlike anything they had ever experienced, an invisible hand weaving through their thoughts, teasing out their deepest fears and desires. It compelled them to confront the unknown, to seek answers no matter the cost. Then, out of the stillness, a sound emerged, a low, pulsating thrum that reverberated through the field. It was not a sound of nature, but something more primordial, echoing the heartbeat of the earth itself. The animals, once calm and quiet, began to stir restlessly in their pens, their soft whinnies and low moans echoing the villagers' mounting trepidation. The horses shifted uneasily, their hooves stamping against the ground, and even the dogs, usually so reliable in their watchfulness, huddled close to their owners, their eyes wide with a primal fear that seemed to transcend understanding. As the villagers strained to listen, they felt the vibrations grow sharper, slicing through the silence like a knife. It was a call, a summons to bear witness to something that defied explanation. "We need to go." An older man finally broke the stillness, his voice barely above a whisper, trembling with the weight of the revelation. Yet even as he spoke, he found himself unable to move, as if bound by an invisible force that held him captive in this moment of cosmic uncertainty. Then, without warning, the ground beneath them seemed to shift, the air crackling with a tension that felt electric. They could sense it, the presence that lay just beyond the veil of their understanding. It was as if the very fabric of reality had begun to unravel, revealing glimpses of a world that had always existed in the shadows, waiting for the right moment to emerge. The villagers exchanged glances, their expressions a mixture of fear and awe, each wrestling with the unsettling notion that they were not alone. Suddenly, a flicker of light flared in the distance, an ethereal glow that illuminated the field in a ghostly hue. It pulsed in time with the vibrations, weaving a tapestry of light that danced across the crops with an otherworldly grace. The sight was both mesmerizing and terrifying, a kaleidoscope of colors bending and twisting in ways that defied nature. It was as if the very essence of the cosmos had descended upon their humble farmland, a visual symphony that thrummed with life. The villagers watched in rapt silence, their senses heightened, drinking in the inexplicable beauty that unfurled before them. The light seemed to form intricate geometric patterns upon the ground, circles within circles, spirals that twisted and turned, intricate designs that spoke of ancient knowledge and cosmic truths. Each shape whispered secrets of the universe, beckoning them closer, urging them to step into a realm that was both thrilling and deeply unsettling. "What is it?" A voice finally broke through the fabric of their thoughts, incredulous and filled with a raw fear. But the question hung in the air, unanswered, as the light flickered and faded, only to return stronger, more insistent, as if it were a beacon calling out to them, daring them to approach the unknown. As the vibrations crescendoed, a sudden silence fell, as if the world held its breath. Time seemed to stretch and warp, each second dragging on with an agonizing slowness. The villagers felt the weight of the moment pressing down upon them, each heartbeat echoing in their ears, a reminder that they were teetering on the precipice of revelation. The air grew thick with the scent of earth and something metallic, a tang that crept into their nostrils and settled on their tongues, leaving a bitter taste of fear and anticipation. They could feel it now, the presence that had been lurking at the edges of their consciousness, watching, waiting. It was a sensation that clawed at their minds, an awareness that they were not merely observers, but participants in an enigmatic phenomenon that had the potential to alter the very essence of their lives. It was a realization that sent shivers down their spines, that they were part of something far greater than themselves, something that transcended the boundaries of human understanding. And as they stood there, trembling at the edge of the circle, the question loomed larger than ever. What had they awakened? The answer danced just out of reach, tantalizingly close yet forever elusive, leaving them suspended in a moment of cosmic uncertainty, a fragile thread connecting them to the vast, unfathomable mysteries of the universe. The night was alive with potential, and the villagers could feel the weight of destiny pressing down upon them, a reminder that they were but fleeting shadows in a world filled with light and darkness, forever intertwined in a cosmic dance. The stillness enveloped the field like a thick fog. Each breath the villagers took echoed loudly in their chests, a stark contrast to the deafening silence that had fallen around them. The air was charged, crackling with an energy that felt both inviting and menacing, as if the very fabric of reality were about to tear apart. They stood transfixed, the pulsating light illuminating their faces with an ethereal glow, casting long shadows that danced along the ground, mimicking the flickering uncertainty in their hearts. Then, like a clap of thunder, the silence shattered. A sound, metallic and resonant, rippled through the air, reverberating in their bones. It was unlike anything they had ever heard, a low hum that vibrated with an otherworldly cadence. It swelled and ebbed, creating an unsettling symphony that seemed to beckon them closer, as if the sound itself was alive, urging them to partake in its cosmic chorus. Each note hung in the air, heavy and thick, weaving through the night like a dark whisper that sent tendrils of anxiety curling through their minds. The light, now a beacon of intense brilliance, began to shift, expanding and contracting like a heartbeat. In that moment, the villagers could feel the ground beneath them pulse in tandem, as if the earth itself was responding to the phenomenon. It shifted from a solid foundation to a living entity, a reminder that they were mere visitors in this realm of the inexplicable. The air thickened with the scent of damp earth mingling with something else, something metallic, almost like blood, but not quite. It lingered, heavy and oppressive, a bitter reminder of the fear that gnawed at their resolve, teasing their senses with an ever-present question: what lay beyond their understanding? Then, without warning, the pulsating light intensified, illuminating the field in stark clarity. The villagers gasped as their eyes adjusted to the brilliance, revealing a geometric formation etched into the earth. A perfect circle, surrounded by intricate patterns that spiraled outward like the tendrils of a galaxy. Each line was precise, defying the very laws of nature, as if drawn by an unseen hand that understood the language of the cosmos. The patterns glimmered under the light, exuding a warmth that contrasted sharply with the chill in the air, a paradox that left them both awestruck and terrified. "What is it?" Sarah, a local schoolteacher, finally broke through the fabric of their collective thoughts, her voice incredulous and filled with raw fear. What could have possibly made this? Her eyes were wide, darting from the glowing circle to the others, searching for answers that eluded them all. "I don't know," replied Tom, the village mechanic, his voice trembling as he stepped closer. "But it feels alive, like it's watching us." He shivered involuntarily, glancing over his shoulder as if expecting to see something lurking in the shadows. "Do you think it's some kind of message?" whispered Lucy, her breath visible in the cool night air, her mind racing with possibilities. "Maybe it's an invitation." The words hung in the air, laden with implications that sent a chill down their spines. They stood transfixed, the weight of the unknown pressing heavily upon them, as the light flickered and faded, only to return stronger, more insistent, as if it were a beacon calling out to them, daring them to approach the unknown. The villagers exchanged uneasy glances, their hearts racing as the gravity of the moment pressed down upon them, a collective breath held in anticipation of what was to come. "What do we do?" Mark, the farmer, stammered, his voice thick with anxiety. "I don't want to get too close. What if it's dangerous? Dangerous, Sarah echoed, disbelief creeping into her voice. We can't just stand here and do nothing. We have to find out what this is. The vibrations continued to crescendo, enveloping them in a cocoon of sound and light, an orchestra of the unknown. The whispers of the wind seemed to carry distant voices, echoes of forgotten tales that danced just beyond their comprehension. Laughter, cries, and warnings mingled in an unsettling harmony, a reminder that the night was alive with the echoes of all that had come before. Time stretched and warped around them, each second dragging on with an agonizing slowness as the realization of their vulnerability settled in. They were exposed, standing at the edge of a cosmic chasm, their lives teetering on the brink of revelation. The air vibrated with an unspoken truth, a promise that change was imminent, and they could not turn back. Each heartbeat echoed in their ears, a reminder of their mortality, a stark contrast to the infinite mystery that lay before them. As they stood there, trembling at the edge of the circle, the question loomed larger than ever. What had they awakened? The answer danced just out of reach, tantalizingly close yet forever elusive, leaving them suspended in a moment of cosmic uncertainty, a fragile thread connecting them to the vast, unfathomable mysteries of the universe. It was a realization that clawed at their minds, a profound awareness that they were not merely observers, but participants in an enigmatic phenomenon that had the potential to alter the very essence of their lives. And in that moment of cosmic tension, something shifted within the circle. A disturbance rippled through the air, a subtle change that sent a shiver down their spines. The patterns on the ground began to glow, pulsating with a rhythm that matched the heartbeat of the villagers. They could feel it now, the presence that had been lurking at the edges of their consciousness, watching, waiting. It was a sensation that clawed at their minds, an awareness that they were part of something far greater than themselves. With bated breath, they leaned closer, hearts racing in unison as the light surged once more, and a silence fell like a shroud. The world held its breath, the night alive with potential, and the villagers stood on the precipice of revelation, uncertain yet drawn forward, entangled in the cosmic dance of light and shadow, forever marked by the mysteries they had only begun to unravel. The night air thickened with an almost tangible tension, a silence that was not merely the absence of sound, but a living entity that enveloped the villagers. They stood, bodies taut with anticipation, as if waiting for an unseen conductor to signal the beginning of an otherworldly symphony. The wavering light from the formation cast elongated shadows that danced eerily on their faces, flickering with the pulse of an unearthly heartbeat. It was as if the very ground beneath them was breathing, exhaling secrets held for eons. In the distance, the familiar sounds of the rural night, the chirping of crickets, the rustling of leaves, had faded into a haunting stillness. The only sound was the gentle thrum of energy emanating from the circle, a vibration that resonated deep within their bones, reverberating through their bodies like a warning. Some clasped their hands together, knuckles white with fear, while others instinctively stepped back, retreating into the shadows, their primal instincts screaming at them to flee. Yet the pull of the circle was undeniable, a magnetic force that demanded they stay to witness whatever strange ballet was about to unfold. As they edged closer, a whisper of wind swept through the field, carrying with it the scent of damp earth mixed with something metallic and sweet. It was an odor that made the hairs on the back of their necks stand on end. It felt alive, as if it were an extension of the very phenomenon that had brought them here. A low humming sound began to resonate from the depths of the formation, an eerie melody that was both beautiful and unsettling, like the haunting echoes of a distant siren luring them into the depths of unknown waters. "Did you hear that?" A voice broke the silence, barely above a whisper. It was Sarah, her eyes wide, reflecting the pulsating light. The others turned to her, their expressions a mixture of fear and curiosity. It's singing to us," she continued, her voice trembling. But was it a song or a warning? The villagers exchanged uneasy glances, their minds racing with the implications of her words. Could such a phenomenon truly possess consciousness? As the low hum grew louder, rising to a frenetic pitch, the ground beneath their feet began to vibrate in sync, sending ripples through the grass that surrounded them. It felt as if the entire world was alive, awakening from a long slumber, and they were but players in a cosmic theater, inexplicably drawn into the unfolding drama. The air grew heavier, and an unexplainable dread settled over them. "We shouldn't be here," Tom muttered, his voice barely above a whisper, yet heavy with conviction. He took a step back, his instinct screaming at him to leave. But the others remained transfixed, rooted to the spot, their gazes locked onto the formation. As the vibrations intensified, they could feel the energy coursing through them, a strange warmth that contrasted with the chill creeping into their bones. The circle began to shimmer, the intricate geometric patterns swirling and shifting like liquid glass. It was mesmerizing, yet terrifying in its beauty, a kaleidoscope of shapes that seemed to defy the very laws of nature. Suddenly, a blinding light shot upward from the center of the formation, illuminating the entire field in a stark white glow that momentarily eclipsed the stars above. The villagers gasped collectively, shielding their eyes as a wave of sound cascaded over them. An overwhelming cacophony of whispers, cries, and laughter that seemed to echo from every corner of the universe. It was a sound that transcended language, a primal roar that instilled both awe and terror. "What is happening?" Sarah cried out, her voice barely audible over the rising tumult. But before anyone could respond, the light dimmed suddenly, leaving them in a profound darkness that felt suffocating. In that moment of uncertainty, the pulsating energy shifted, drawing their attention back to the ground where the circle had been. The patterns were now faint, like fading memories etched into the earth, but the air still crackled with the remnants of the phenomenon. Then came the first tremor, a subtle quake that vibrated through the soil, causing the villagers to stumble and grasp for balance. They exchanged glances filled with fear and confusion, a silent agreement passing between them that they needed to understand what they had witnessed. But as the vibration settled, a chilling realization dawned upon them. It wasn't just the ground that was shifting, the fabric of their reality felt altered, as if they had crossed into a realm beyond their comprehension. One by one, they began to speak, their voices overlapping in a rush of disbelief. "Did you see the way it moved? What did we just hear? This is not right." Each question was laced with uncertainty, their minds grappling with the implications of what they had just experienced. But beneath the surface of their words lay a deeper fear, the fear of what had watched them as they stood at the edge of the circle, the fear of the presence that had lingered just out of sight, and the fear that they had awakened something that should have remained undisturbed. As the discussions turned frantic, the villagers began to notice the peculiar behavior of the animals. The horses, usually calm and placid, were restless, stamping their hooves and snorting in agitation. Cows mooed uneasily, their eyes wide with a terror that mirrored the villagers' own. It was as if the entire ecosystem had sensed the disturbance, and now they were all caught in the throes of a shared anxiety, a collective consciousness that echoed back the fear of something vast and unknowable. "Maybe we should leave," Tom suggested again, his voice more urgent now. "Whatever that was, it's not done with us." But before anyone could respond, a haunting sound echoed through the field, a low, resonant tone that seemed to vibrate not just in the air, but within their very souls. It was a sound that felt ancient, a reminder of a forgotten time, and it sent chills racing down their spines. In that moment, they understood that the night had changed them irrevocably, binding them to a mystery far greater than they could ever hope to understand. As the villagers stood there, a sense of foreboding washed over them, a realization that they had crossed a threshold from which there was no return. They were no longer merely witnesses to the phenomenon. They had become part of its narrative, entangled in a web of cosmic significance that would alter the course of their lives forever. And as the echoes of their own heartbeats mingled with the distant haunting tones reverberating through the night, they knew that the true story was only just beginning. The next morning, the sun rose reluctantly over the horizon, casting a muted light across the fields of Maple Grove. The air was thick with an unsettling stillness, as if the very atmosphere had absorbed the events of the previous night, holding its breath in anticipation. The villagers, weary and haunted, gathered at the edge of the crop circle, their eyes wide with a mix of dread and disbelief. Tom stood at the forefront, his brow furrowed with concern. The once familiar landscape now appeared foreign, transformed overnight into something that felt both sacred and sinister. The wheat swayed gently in the breeze, but where the circle had been, the stalks lay flat, bent in perfect geometric patterns that seemed to defy nature itself. It was as though a giant hand had reached down and meticulously crafted the design, leaving no trace of disturbance, no broken stems, no scattered debris. "What the hell happened here?" Sarah whispered, her voice barely a tremor against the oppressive silence that enveloped them. The scent of damp earth mixed with a metallic tang lingered in the air, a reminder of the inexplicable phenomena they had witnessed. As she stepped closer, the ground beneath her feet felt unnaturally warm, sending a shiver coursing through her spine. The villagers began to circle the formation, their murmurs blending with the rustling of the leaves above. Each step felt heavy, as if they were trudging through a dream, each footfall echoing in the vast emptiness surrounding them. It was then that Martha, the local historian, knelt beside the edge of the circle, her fingers trembling as they brushed against the cool, flattened stalks. This isn't just a random pattern," she said, her voice laced with a mix of awe and fear. "These shapes, they resemble ancient symbols. Look at this one here." She pointed to a particularly intricate design, a series of intersecting lines that spiraled inward, forming a perfect geometric shape that seemed to pulse with a life of its own. The villagers gathered around her, their eyes scanning the formation with a blend of curiosity and trepidation. But as they studied the symbols, a low hum began to resonate in the air, a sound that seemed to emanate from the very heart of the circle itself. "What is that?" Tom asked, his voice rising in pitch as the vibration intensified. The sound was unlike anything they had ever heard, deep, resonant, and almost melodic, wrapping around them like an invisible shroud. It felt as if the earth beneath them was speaking, revealing secrets buried deep within its core. The animals, previously restless, had retreated to the edges of the fields, their eyes wide with a primal fear. The horses whinnied softly, their breath visible in the cool morning air, while the cows stood in a tight cluster, their heads low and ears flicking nervously. It was as if they sensed an unseen force, a presence that weighed heavily on the land, and instinctively knew that something was off. Martha, her curiosity piqued, reached out to touch the ground within the circle, her fingers brushing against something cool and smooth. Suddenly, a flicker of light danced across the formation, illuminating the symbols in a shimmering glow that seemed to pulse in time with the eerie hum. The villagers gasped collectively, their breath hitching in their throats as they stood transfixed, caught between wonder and dread. "Get back!" Sarah shouted, instinctively pulling Tom away, her heart racing. The sound escalated, becoming a cacophony of vibrations that rattled their bones. It felt like an unholy choir singing a song of ancient knowledge and dark revelation, and at that moment every instinct screamed at them to flee. But something held them there, a magnetic pull that tethered them to the circle. They were trapped in a web of cosmic energy, the air thick with tension as they tried to make sense of the unfathomable. Each villager's gaze flickered back to the symbols, their minds racing to connect the dots, to find meaning in the chaos. "What if it's a warning?" Tom ventured, his voice trembling. "What if it's something that was meant to stay hidden?" Martha shook her head, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and fascination. Or it could be an invitation, she countered, the words hanging heavily in the air. An invitation to explore, to understand. Their discussions were abruptly cut short as a sudden silence enveloped them, overwhelming and suffocating, as if the world had paused to witness their plight. The hum faded to nothing, leaving an eerie stillness that settled over the field like a heavy fog. They exchanged glances, each face reflecting the same unspoken question. What had they uncovered? As the sun crested higher in the sky, illuminating the pattern with a harsh light, the villagers remained transfixed, unable to tear their eyes away from the perfect geometry that marred their once familiar landscape. The air was thick with an indefinable energy, and they could feel it, like static electricity, pricking at their skin. Do you think it's still watching us?" Sarah whispered, her voice trembling. The thought hung in the air, heavy and unsettling. Even as the sun shone brightly, the sensation of being observed lingered, wrapping around each villager like a cloak of dread. It was a feeling that transcended the physical, reaching into the depths of their psyche, awakening primal fears they could not comprehend. The day wore on, but the mystery of the circle remained, a haunting enigma etched in the fabric of their lives. As they stood there, tethered to the ground, they couldn't shake the feeling that the true significance of what had transpired was yet to be revealed. A gnawing sense of dread settled in the pit of their stomachs, a whisper of something yet to come, something that would bind them together in a narrative far beyond their understanding. And as the sun dipped low in the sky, casting long shadows across the field, an unsettling thought crept into their minds. What if the circle was merely the beginning? The sun, now a fiery orb sinking behind the distant hills, painted the sky in hues of crimson and deep indigo, an ominous backdrop to the gathering unease. The villagers stood in a loose circle, their eyes drawn to the enigmatic formation sprawled across the field, a perfect geometric design that seemed to pulse with a life of its own. Each angle and curve whispered secrets that eluded comprehension, yet beckoned to be understood. Martha's heart raced as she stepped closer, her footfalls muffled by the thick carpet of grass, the air around her charged with a palpable tension. The sound of her breath felt loud against the silence, an anxious reminder of the reality they were all trying to navigate. She could feel the weight of their collective gaze, their uncertainty hanging in the air like a thick fog. The perfect symmetry of the crop circle seemed to mock their confusion, daring them to unravel its meaning. "What if it's something that was meant to stay hidden?" whispered Jacob, his voice cracking under the strain of suppressed fear. His brow furrowed, eyes darting nervously as if expecting something or someone to emerge from the very earth beneath them. "Or it could be an invitation," Martha replied, her voice steady yet laced with trepidation. She felt the urge to explore, to delve deeper into the mystery that had suddenly transformed their mundane lives into a tapestry of intrigue and dread. But the thought of what lay beyond the known boundaries sent chills down her spine. Was it truly a call to understanding, or a trap set by something ancient and unfathomable? As they debated, a sudden shift in the wind swept through the field, carrying with it a sharp, metallic scent that caught them off guard. It was unlike anything they had ever encountered, a lingering trace that sent their senses into overdrive. The animals that had previously remained silent now stirred uneasily in the distance, their restless movements echoing the villagers' own growing sense of disquiet. The air was thickening, becoming heavier, almost alive, as if the very atmosphere around them was charged with energy, vibrating at a frequency they could barely comprehend. Do you think it's still watching us?" Sarah's voice trembled like a leaf caught in the wind, her eyes wide with terror. The question hung in the air, a haunting echo that reverberated within the group. Each villager felt it, the sensation of unseen eyes penetrating their souls, scrutinizing their every thought and fear. It was a weight that pressed down upon them, igniting a primal instinct to flee, yet they remained rooted to the spot, captivated by the mystery before them. In that moment, the silence deepened, enveloping them in an almost suffocating embrace. The world outside the circle faded into obscurity. The distant sounds of the farm, cows lowing, the rustle of leaves, the chirp of crickets, went silent, as if nature itself held its breath, waiting for something to unfold. It was an eerie stillness that felt unnatural, as if the universe itself had conspired to create this moment of anticipation. As the sun continued its descent, shadows stretched long and dark across the land, distorting the shapes of the crops in ways that seemed to twist the very fabric of reality. Martha shivered, her skin tingling as the last rays of sunlight danced across the geometric pattern, illuminating its edges with a ghostly glow. Each line and curve took on a life of its own, shifting and morphing in her mind's eye, a kaleidoscope of possibilities that both fascinated and terrified her. The villagers stood transfixed, their hearts racing in unison, a rhythm that matched the beating of the earth beneath them. They were caught between worlds, the familiar and the unknown, each breath they took filled with a mix of dread and curiosity. The air was thick with an indefinable energy, a static charge that made their hair stand on end, as if they were standing at the precipice of discovery or disaster. As darkness fell, the first stars began to twinkle in the vast expanse above, tiny pinpricks of light that felt impossibly far away. The realization settled heavily upon them. The circle was not merely a disruption of their landscape, it was a marker, a beacon that seemed to pulse with a heartbeat of its own. Martha felt an inexplicable urge to reach out, to touch the pattern, to connect with whatever force had crafted it. But she hesitated, fear coiling in her gut, whispering that some things were better left untouched. Then, an unexpected sound pierced the stillness. A low, resonating hum that seemed to emanate from the very ground. It vibrated through their bones, a haunting melody that resonated with an ancient familiarity. The villagers exchanged glances, their eyes wide with a mixture of dread and wonder. What was this sound? Was it a warning or an invitation? In that moment they felt it, a collective understanding, an awareness that transcended spoken words. The crop circle was not merely a phenomenon, it was a portal into something vast and incomprehensible, a glimpse into the unknown that lay just beyond their perception. And then, as if sensing their trepidation, the hum faded into silence, leaving them in a void where time seemed to stretch infinitely. The feeling of being watched intensified, wrapping around them like a shroud. Martha's heart raced as she realized the implications of their discovery, the weight of its significance pressing down on her. But just as the darkness threatened to consume them, a single item caught Martha's eye. A small, metallic fragment, half buried in the soil at the edge of the formation. She bent down, fingers trembling as she brushed away the dirt, revealing a piece of smooth, polished metal etched with strange, intricate symbols. The air around her crackled with energy, and a shiver ran down her spine as she held it up for the villagers to see. "Look," she breathed, her voice barely a whisper. "What is this?" The villagers gathered closer, their expressions a mix of horror and fascination as they stared at the object. It contradicted everything they had thought they understood about their world, a tangible piece of a puzzle that seemed to defy logic. And just like that, the weight of their reality shifted, spiraling into an abyss of uncertainty. What had they uncovered? What truths lay hidden beneath the surface? The mystery deepened, and as the last light of day faded, the specter of the unknown loomed larger than ever, leaving them with a haunting question. What if the circle was merely the beginning? As they stood together in the darkness, the air crackling with a sense of impending revelation, they could not shake the feeling that something was still watching, waiting. The atmosphere thrummed with the promise of more secrets to be unveiled, a narrative that would intertwine their fates and draw them deeper into a world woven with shadows and whispers, one that would forever change their understanding of what lay beyond the veil of human perception.